Ben Habib, former Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Good to have you back on the show, Ben. Thank you very much indeed. Good evening.
Good evening. Good to be on the show. Good to see you both.
Yeah, I keep trying to get you to come into the studio, but Ben, I appreciate Saturday night, your party.
He's in his garden. Look, it's lovely. Look, he's in his nice garden.
I've got a jungle behind me.
Yeah.
Very nice as well. OK, seem to have lost Ben somewhere. Oh, he's back. Right. What is this two-tier policing? Is it really in existence, do you think?
Yeah, it absolutely is. We have a two-tier society, and I thought Phil Harris explained it extremely well in the way that he set it out. What he didn't mention, though, is that we have a regulatory and legislative framework which has put this in place. You know, the establishment of the requirement for institutions across the United Kingdom to provide some form of social justice is how it started under Tony Blair. And then they put belt, whistles and everything else on this idea of social justice, and what emerged from this was the Equalities Act and Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, which is effectively giving protected status through the regulatory framework to minority ethnicities, minority religious beliefs. I know you talked about religion, minority sexual preferences, the whole gender ideology. And that's been placed in a protected status through our regulatory and legislative framework. And my business, for example, has to adhere to it. Every education establishment has to adhere to it.
But why?
Public services have to adhere to it.
I mean, I don't understand that. You can actually, I mean, some of these forms you have to fill in for jobs in companies, and you're saying all companies really have to adhere to this, is actually making this a very racist nation.
It's human rights legislation, which is meant to help the minority against the majority.
You're absolutely right. We didn't have a racist nation.
No.
But the imposition of these discriminatory behaviours, they call it progressive discrimination, but discrimination is discrimination. Absolutely. There's no other way to cut it.
Yeah.
And if you're progressively discriminating in favour of someone, you're negatively discriminating in favour against someone else, aren't you?
Yep.
You can't have one without the other.
But then there's unofficial add-ons, aren't there? Because you get the police negotiating with community leaders to decide.
Absolutely.
But the white working class doesn't have any community
But the community
leaders,
the community leaders set themselves up.
Well, yeah, exactly.
They're not democratically elected, and nobody should listen to them. I wouldn't have any on the show.
Well, the law applies to the individual, not groups.
Absolutely. We shouldn't have multiple communities in this country. We should be one settled British culture.
Totally agree.
And it's the establishment of this DEI, Equalities Act, the protected status for certain minorities, that has created this. And of course, the police are trained to protect and promote and celebrate diversity, as they call it. And so, of course, there's two-tier policing. And it's the white majority. There's the only way to describe it is it's the white majority who are being prejudiced against. And the worst, possibly the most discriminated individual in this country, the person who experiences the most discrimination is the white, middle-aged, heterosexual man. You know, that's the guy who is...
I mean, nearly all of your attributes.
The interesting thing, Ben, I'm just looking at the screen to look at the three of us. There's not much difference in any of the colour of our skins, is there?
I'm lucky enough to... I'm actually officially part of the protected status. But I find it an abhorrence that someone should think I need protection.
But we need people from those communities. I remember when Braverman said, multiculturalism hadn't worked, and that was a watershed moment, because anyone else who said that at the time was shut down as a racist, and that changed things. So we need more people like her, Priti Patel.
And it was a very brave thing for a Home Secretary to say. People often criticise Suella for not having walked the walk. She talks the talk but doesn't walk the walk. Listen, just talking the talk is brave, because you get categorized as a racist, far-right, xenophobic, Islamophobic, lock them up. And it's wrong. And these riots, they're criminals. Obviously, people who tear up hotels, set light to vehicles and all that, they're criminals. But there's no way that Keir Starmer can say they're far-right. He hasn't done a census of the political disposition of all those people who've been rioting.
How?
And I would... Yeah.
No,
sorry,
go on.
go on.
No, how?
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you go on.
I was just going to say that the rioters are the white, working class, from deprived areas of this country who I imagine, if I were to hazard a guess, would typically vote Labour.
Yeah.
But it's the Labour Party that's turned its back on the very people that it should be promoting and protecting. And the Labour Party's lost its compass completely.
Yeah. But some of those people will still vote Labour, won't they? Do you think they will?
Yeah.
In the next
Hang on. Let's not go down there. We've only got time for one more question.
The enemy
Ben,
of the working class.
how do you feel about the way the mainstream media is trying to paint reform into an extreme right-wing corner?
I think it's awful. I think it's wretched. Because that, again, stokes division. There are 4.1 million people voted for reform in the last election. Many more, I suspect, would have voted if they didn't fear a Labour government and didn't want to split the so-called right-wing vote. We've got millions and millions of supporters in this country who want a proud, independent, sovereign, United Kingdom with borders that work, with a constitution that serves the British people, with a parliament that isn't stuck in their head, stuck in globalism, but stuck in the national interest. That's what people want. None of that is extremist politics. All of that is what I would call common sense and the promotion of British interests.
But if they say there is that
Couldn't
problem,
agree more.
they can't fix it, can they?
Ben, we're going to talk again at some point in the future. I'm sorry, we're running out of time, Ben. But go on, go back to Ben. Go back to Ben.
Sorry, I will come in next time, James. I wasn't aware that I was. I'd love to come
you're
in.
welcome.
Just say,
Think of this as your second home.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Thanks, Ben.